So what happened was I had a shoot where the yellow background would be absolutely perfect, and it was, and then it went back in the box and hasn't come out since. So today, this yellow background gets one more shot at glory because I'm going to do a photo session where there's going to be a great big hole in the middle of this piece of paper, and that's going to be that, I suspect. Now, before I actually punch a great big hole in that piece of paper, I'm going to practice on something a bit smaller and hopefully a little less expensive. I bought this very, very cheap roll of, oh, it's really thin, white paper. And I'm going to set the same look up with this, and then we'll transfer that idea over to this background paper. So I think what I need to do is to get a light set, let's get a model in, let's get shooting, but I think actually before all of that, let's get a pair of scissors. To help me out today, I've got the amazing Chloe. Chloe's going to be the model for this photo session, and before we get going with all of the flash and the backgrounds, I need to get control of the room lights. So I've dialed in some default settings that won't change during the session. I've got a shutter speed of 250th of a second, which is my flash sync speed. Yours might be slightly different. F8 for a reasonable depth of field, and ISO 200. And those settings, no flash gives me this, no picture. We've got control of the room lights, and now I can add in my own light. So I'm ready to start making a hole in this rather nice sheet of white paper, but let's talk about the setup first of all. I have a white roll of paper. It was basically the cheapest I could get my hands on. It's not particularly thick, but that doesn't really matter. I've mounted it on a C-stand with a grip arm, and that gives me an advantage. I can actually move it up and down because I'm going to try and make this hole in the middle where Chloe's eye height is, more or less. So around about there somewhere, and well, we'll see. Oh, there we go. That's it. I'm going to make a small hole first. The temptation is just to make a massive hole, but start small because you can make it bigger, but you can't really make it smaller. And when I'm making the hole, I'm just going to try and sort of curve everything back because the art of this is to have some shadows, and we'll talk about the light position for that in a second. But that is probably about right. Chloe, do you want to just sort of go in behind and we'll try and get this to line up with your eye. Oh, hey, that was pretty good. Now I could use trial and error or TTL to get the correct exposure, but this is white, and to get it to record as white, I prefer to use a flash meter. It's not an essential thing, but it just gives me a bit more accuracy and consistency. So once I've got my flash meter to read exactly the same as my camera settings, all I have to do is get Chloe to look straight through the hole, which she is indeed, look down the lens, and yeah, I mean, it works. There's some nice shadow on the curve of the paper that I've pulled towards the camera, and yeah, well, it's a start, isn't it? But you can see that the white of the paper looks nice and even. So I'm going to make this hole a little bit larger. I think the art with this is to go a little bit at a time, don't go mad, and try and form it into a bit of a shape. So I'm going to try and make it a roundish hole, and I'm curving all of the little bits of paper backwards as I'm going. So nothing goes in towards Chloe, everything is coming out towards the camera, and for that simple reason that that's going to put a shadow onto the white and it'll give it depth and 3 dimensions. Chloe, do you want to go in behind? Let's see how we're doing. Definitely a larger hole. That's pretty good, but we can really only see one eye. So what I'm going to ask Chloe to do, Chloe, do you want to make it a little bit bigger for me? Wow, yeah, that was quite a lot bigger. Oh, but that works, you see, that's so much better. Yeah, that looks much better. And now we can see more of Chloe's face. It's time to start thinking about the direction of light, because at the moment it's a standard 45 degrees, but I'll get more shadows if I move my light around to the side. And if I do that, it looks like this. Much more shadows on the white paper, but also shadows on Chloe's face, which isn't really what I want. So actually, I'm going to center my light up a little bit, like that, so it comes around more in line with the camera, but not completely in line with the camera. So I've still got the shadows on here, but now I have a more even light on Chloe's face. And I think that's everything set up. So Chloe, if you're ready, let's start making that hole a little bit bigger. Do you want to give it a little bit of a rip? And we'll take a few more photos like this. Here we go. using the Flashpoint Explore 100, but more importantly is the softbox, which is a Hexapop 24-inch. It's not a big softbox. It's going to put some shadows into the picture, and that's absolutely essential, but I don't want the shadows to be really hard-edged like a bare flash, so this is a lovely compromise for this sort of distance. For the second look, I've changed things around a little bit, so no longer do we have the cheap white background. I now have a more expensive studio yellow background. It fits in with Chloe's outfit, as you can see. It's got a few advantages. The first one is it's noticeably wider than this. It's also thicker paper as well, and it's yellow all the way through, so it's not white with a yellow surface. Do watch out for that when you're trying to get your studio paper. However, it is more expensive, so I'm going to take all that we learnt from the first session and apply it to this session, and hopefully only make one hole in this expensive sheet of paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is check the lighting setup. Now I have changed two things. So now we have a much larger Parapop 38-inch softbox, and to fill that I've got a more powerful Explore 300 flash from Flashpoint. Now those are there because everything is just a bit further away. It's a bigger setup, but I still want to maintain that nice shadows, and it has a nice soft edge to it. So I think we are good to go. Chloe, do you want to go around the other side and we'll start making some holes? Now the paper is wider and I can't see where Chloe's eye is, so Chloe, I'm going to give you the scissors and she's going to make a hole in the centre, round about eye height for herself. It's thicker paper. It's so hard. Hey, there you go. I think I better take the scissors back now, yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to make the hole a little bit bigger. So we'll do what we did before. Start with a small hole and carefully design it as much as you can with paper. Something like that. So we're off to a good start, but we want a bigger hole than this. It's a bigger sheet of paper. We should definitely take advantage of that. So let's make a face-sized hole. You'll notice that behind Chloe is the same yellow paper, but it's a much darker colour. That's because of two things. That's because of light fall off, but also because, well, there's a massive sheet of yellow paper blocking the way of the light reaching that area. Now, if you're not in a nice small space with white walls and ceiling, you might need to think about putting a second light back there. The other option as the hole gets bigger is to let the light come through the hole, and to even up the colours a little bit, I'm just going to back Chloe up closer to the background so the inverse square law has less of an impact. And I think something like that should be pretty good. Let's try this. And those two yellow bits of paper are the same colour, but you can see how they look definitely different. And that one in the background really ties in with Chloe's outfit. So I think we should definitely go for some larger holes, larger apertures. Chloe, are you ready? Okay, let's take a few photos like this. Well, I say like this. Let's go like this. Might have a big opening in the background, but it's the small details that matter. So Sam chose a yellow top to match the background. Chloe's done yellow eye makeup to match the background, and those small things really add up to one great final photo. I've learnt two things from this photo session, and the first is once you've made your hole, there is no going back. And secondly, the bigger the opening, the more I actually like the look of the photos. I think it's because the light came through and hit the background, so why not go for the biggest opening you can? Yeah. Now, if you've enjoyed this video or you've got any questions about it, just leave me a comment down below. Whilst you're there, click on the subscribe button and of course hit the bell icon. Check out the gear links, and if you want more tips like this from the Adorama TV team, then check out our next video up there. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.